Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Pierre, and joining me, as always, is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
And I'll let you know right now, if I could do a Walken impression, I would have introed the show in my Walken impression, but unfortunately I cannot.
Luckily for our audience, neither of us can do a Walken impression. The one celebrity everybody does.
Yeah, I
do Arnold all right, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I do Arnold well. I think I yell enough in an Arnoldy way that people know at least what I'm trying to do, so it works. People know that I'm trying to do Arnold. Whereas most impressions I try to do don't work at all, and no one even knows. You only
have one impression, and it's John Hammond from Jurassic Park.
Hello, John. Hello, John. Hello, John. Spared no expense. Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm cheating or anything, just being from Scotland. But welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. This is our science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we've watched the movie, we talk about it. It's really that simple. And today's episode is another Patreon vote winner. This was the December vote, which was, I think, was 480s movies. And the winner was 1983's The Dead Zone, based on the Stephen King book, directed by David Cronenberg. So we did a Brandon Cronenberg movie not too long ago, and now we're going back to his old man for one of his sort of in his prime type films, starring Christopher Walken, of course, hence all the Christopher Walken talk. And something, and we'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get to spoilers. I'll give the premise in a second, but I was confused a couple. So I'd never seen this before. This was a first time watch for me. You'd seen this but a long time ago, I think.
I hadn't seen it since maybe early teens, but I had seen it multiple times.
So several decades. So that's a bitch. So I had a thought about 5-10 minutes in, and it almost retroactively became a joke to make fun of Tara with. Because 10 minutes in, I was convinced Karen Allen was in this movie, and I started chuckling to myself because I didn't think I saw her name in the credits, and I went and checked, and it's not. The actress is Brooke Adams, and then I started laughing hysterically because if those of you who have not been around for a while, you've forgotten, but Tara once upon a time thought Karen Allen and Margot Kidder were the same person, and the Margot Kidder.
I still think. And you know what? I was talking to my dad, and he also mistook the same actresses for each other. So I guess it's genetic.
Okay, that passed on.
I inherited his inability to distinguish these two actresses.
So yeah, you thought Margot Kidder. That's because famously I don't know if this was on air or this was just something we told everyone about after the fact, but you were convinced that Margot Kidder was in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I'm like, what are you talking about, Tara, you crazy woman? She's nowhere near that movie. But I want to propose to you, because this makes it more complicated now that we've got a third on the table. I think Brooke Adams, the female lead in this film, looks and sounds so much like Karen Allen that Margot Kidder is like out of the picture. Like, these two could be twin sisters.
Oh yeah, she definitely looks a lot like her. I actually just randomly, I watched another movie with her in it over the weekend. I watched a Terrence Malick movie called Days of Heaven, where she starred in it. So I was like, oh, it's this actress that I saw for probably the first time where I noticed her just like a week before, which is interesting. But yeah, you're right. They do look identical.
She's so Karen Allen. It was blowing my mind. And then I remembered your Margot Kidder thing, and I just started laughing that, oh, there's a third. There's another.
This is my Jessica Chastain and Bryce Dallas Howard. I think those two are the two that get mixed up. Or
I've heard this. I've never really felt that.
I've never had that issue either.
Yeah. There was a time when neither of them were super well known where I thought Isla Fisher and Amy Adams were the same person, but after a while, Amy Adams' career took off and Isla Fisher disappeared, so it became quite easy to...
Yeah, I never had that issue either.
Yes. And I'm sure there's a couple other ones, but... I don't confuse them, but people do say that Logan Marshall Green does look a lot like Tom Hardy, and he does, but the right facial hair, they do look they look like their brothers, but... I never confused them for each other. I mean, it's not that hard to tell usually, but I genuinely thought this was Karen Allen for... I almost said Nancy Allen there, not Nancy Allen. But I genuinely...
bring in a fourth, why not?
I genuinely thought this was Karen Allen for a good couple of minutes until I checked and went, oh, it's not. But because of that, every time she popped up in the movie, every time I looked at her, I'm like, she's almost like Karen Allen. Like, she smiles, her voice, like, all of it, it's Karen Allen. Like, honestly, this is the sort of thing where after Raiders, when she wasn't coming back for the second one, and admittedly it was a prequel template, so I don't know if they even wanted her back. But
well, they had history, except she was like supposed to be a lot younger, I think.
Yeah. So I was like, you could have just got Brooke Adams. This is like the best recasting opportunity you've ever been presented with. No one would even notice.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the premise of the Dead Zone, based on the Stephen King book, and there's a lot of Stephen King things in this. You know, the Castle Rock killer, for example, I was chuckling at when it came up.
I think they're in Castle Rock.
Yeah, they're in Castle Rock, but that's the killer that's going around in the middle of the movies. The Castle Rock killer. Not a very inventive name by the press. I mean, really, just the name of the town with the word killer at the end. Good job, guys. There's other stars. Tom Skerritt's in the role as the sheriff. You got Martin Sheen later on in the film. So there's faces that you recognise throughout. But this is a story about a man who's in an accident, a car accident. Christopher Walken is in a coma, wakes up 5 years later. The love of his life has moved on and had a kid with another man. She's married, and whenever he touches someone, he gets a psychic vision. And it seems to vary between, you know, something that's happening right now, something that happened in someone's past, something that happened in someone's future. Regardless, though, there's always a purpose to it. There's always something that can be done or important information that's relevant. You know, so even when it's in the past, it's like, oh, there's a piece of information that the person who he's touched will benefit from hearing. If you know, so there's always something. So, but that's the basic premise, and the film kind of explores a few different avenues as to how this could be used and like what he makes of it and what his life is like. So that's the general gist of it. And we'll keep it spoiler free, like I said. We'll go into spoilers when we warn you, but we'll get our general impressions and all that out of the way first. So, Tara, what did you think of The Dead Zone?
I like it. I mean, I liked it a lot when I watched it when I was younger, and I still like it now. Nothing was really a surprise to me except when Cronenberg's name came up. I guess I never realized it was a Cronenberg film.
I didn't know this at some point, but I'd forgotten that when I sat down to watch it, because when his name came up at the end of the, I was like, or not even the end, it was near the start, like a David Cronenberg film. I went, oh yeah, Cronenberg.
At the end of the opening credits.
Yeah.
We're like, oh yeah, and then and surprisingly, for the amount of death that is in the film, we don't really see very much, which is a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, this isn't super Cronenbergian.
No.
To use a term. It feels kind of like he'd gotten successful. He'd done like Shivers and he'd done Rabid. He'd done all these films in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting into the 80s. He'd done like, I think, Scanners at the start of the decade, and I think maybe a couple other, you know.
He's like dipping his toe into something mainstream that the public would accept.
You know, Stephen King adaptation. He was trying to do something a bit more normalized, and it's not like, it's definitely a movie with ideas and stuff, but it's not body horror Cronenberg.
No. For the amount of death that is depicted in the film, like, there really is not, like, nobody's melting.
Yeah, it feels
even his accident, like, you don't see anything.
Nah, it feels more like
it's like a thriller.
Yeah, it's a sci-fi thriller. It's kind of a good solid like feature length episode of the Twilight Zone, and not just because the word zone's in the title. Because actually
it is very Twilight Zone-esque.
Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, I like the movie as well. I wasn't sure what to make of it early on. It has a very interesting flow and structure, because it kind of, like, you know, like Brooke Adams' character, the love interest, like, she's a big part of the opening like 10 minutes, and then obviously once he wakes up, but then after that she kind of disappears for long stretches, and the plot almost becomes about this serial killer, and then in the last act the plot really becomes more about something else, which I won't even spoil. I'll save that, but it kind of goes through these phases of different things that are all relevant to what he's going through, but it's a very interesting I mean, don't get me wrong though, I do think the ultimate choice he has to make towards the end of the film is kind of the most interesting part, and I kind of think that because I was wondering, okay, where's this going? Like, I got to about halfway hour into the movie, and I was like, okay, well, this is generally good. Walken's been walking, and like these are interesting situations he's getting put in. But I'm like, what is I don't know where it's going. Where's the point of this going?
That's interesting. I was wondering, for someone when it's a first time watch, if you would find it predictable or not.
No, not at all. I mean, certainly not before there's like a moment where it sort of propels everything into that final part of the story. I knew a character that was introduced late on was going to be important because they made a big deal of introducing them, but I didn't necessarily know in what way. And then it became kind of a normal question people talk about when they talk about a theoretical idea. I don't want to even say what it is, but you'll know what we're talking about when we get there. But yeah, the ending's really strong. And it brings in questions of like, why did he get this power? Because there's no real answer. There's speculation that it's gods gave him this powers to do something specific, and if it is the case, then maybe what he does by the end is kind of the reason why he ever had it in the first place. It was specifically for this, as opposed to all the little things along the way. But no, Walken's good. I will say at the start of the movie, pre-accident, 5 years in the past, so I presume this is, I'd never give you a year, I don't think. I just assume it's like 1978, I guess, since it's 5 years ago. For some reason, Christopher Walken has this really weird haircut, and it looks like he's
He's super dorky.
Joey, it looks like he's cosplaying as Harry Potter.
He's got like the sweater. He's an English professor in the beginning of the film, before the accident. He loses his job after being in a coma for 5 years. It's understandable.
Yeah, I don't know if
it's a small town. They probably had to find another professor pretty quick.
I don't know if I'd describe we have to find someone new because the teacher's in a coma as him, losing his job. It's more like, no, he's just unable to come in.
They got the adjunct professor to come in, and then they just hired him full time. Like, it looks like he's not waking up. So
yeah, is professor the right term? Because it was like
he's
middle
teacher,
school.
Yeah,
it was like middle school kids.
It's the last term I used for school. So.
Sure. Because they're like 9 or 10 or something. I don't know what age though.
Yeah, I guess teacher. I mean, I think you can call a teacher professor before college, can't you?
Isn't professor like a title though that you gain depending on your level of education? I don't know either. I've never called like a teacher from like a normal school a professor, but I mean, it's not impossible, I guess.
I guess maybe if I was in the circuit, I would know.
I'm sure people will tell us in the comments. They'll be like, "How are you two such idiots?"
I mean, I went to school.
I did. Apparently, we didn't learn much, but
well, I learned about my professor.
we were, school was school. Anyway, so yeah, but I mean, he's very Christopher Walken. It's actually kind of interesting judging a Christopher Walken performance because he's got such an energy to him, just inherently, that he almost overshadows any character he's going to play because he's Christopher Walken. And it's kind of a choice of like, does that work or not? I think in this movie it actually does kind of work because the character inherently, because people start to learn that this guy might have like some sort of psychic ability, that he's kind of kooky. Christopher Walken inherently, he's got the crazy, because when he wakes up from the coma, he has Christopher Walken hair.
Yeah.
To put it in, like, he has the proper sticky up
By the
hair.
end, it's even more spiky and fluffy.
Yeah. He's going crazy. But it kind of fits his like sort of, he's the odd one out mentality of the movie that he is Christopher Walken.
He's got a great jacket at the end also.
Sure. I had considered these as
it's got like that vampire crest.
He's got the collar. Yeah, he's
the collar. Yeah.
Yes, he's a lone hero in the dark alleyway, the Dark Knight, if you will, not the Batman, but
that's a super suit.
Yes. But no, it's full of interesting situations, and it's solidly directed, even though if it's not the flashiest thing Cronenberg has done, and it doesn't feel like Cronenbergian. It just feels, because I actually think the opening title sequence is like some of the best atmosphere in the movie, like the way the like basically some black like shapes start to form on the screen, and you realize that it's creating the title of the movie by sort of negative space. It's like covering up parts of the screen, so eventually it says the dead zone and the image of the whatever. It's like shots of the town and stuff like that.
Well, I think the music really sets it up too.
Of course, yeah, the music's a big part of it. I did think it was weird though, because the title actually comes up before all that as well. Like it comes because it says Dio De Laurentiis film, The Dead Zone, and then this opening title sequence starts playing, and it slowly reveals it. It's like if an alien, how because an alien, the parts of the title slowly fade in. It'd be like if an alien, it says 20th Century Fox present Alien, and then they did the alien thing where it all started fading in bit by bit. I was like, you told me already. You told me it was Alien. So that was a bit weird, but I mean, it's a nitpick. It's a minor nitpick. It's just weird. So
Yeah, I agree. We don't need the title twice in the opening.
yeah. Sadly, the end of the world. It doesn't affect the movie that much, but
Not really.
yeah, it stuck out to me, I guess.
I do think it's a really entertaining movie, though. I mean, I've watched it a few times now, and even though I've taken such a break from it, nothing was really surprising to me. Like, this movie really stuck with me from when I watched it long ago.
Yeah, it's weird that I kind of missed this one up until now. It's just one of those things where it just never... I never caught it on TV.
I think it played on TV a lot.
It probably did. And I remember there being a TV show in the 2000s. I never watched it, but I remember it being a thing that existed.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
I believe it was Anthony Michael Hall in the Walken role, I believe.
That's not Rusty from Vacation, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It's yeah. Also Breakfast Club. That's the other thing people know him from.
Yeah, I like Vacation.
It's better. The problem with Vacation is though is that that kid changes actor like every movie almost because Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, Christmas Vacation. It's the guy from
Big Bang Theory.
The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. But I think Anthony Michael Hall's in one of the other ones too, because I always thought Christmas Vacation was
He's
the
in
second.
European Vacation, I'm pretty sure.
So European must have been second then, because he must have left after unless they had him, lost him, and then brought him back, which seems unlikely.
Yeah, that's the one everyone skips because it's not very good.
Yes. Is Vegas good? I've not seen the Vegas one. Vegas is the fourth one. No. Just the original and Christmas is the only ones you want to mess with.
I saw Vegas Vacation in theaters. It was trying to catch lightning in a bottle. Again. It was no good.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
There's a lot of Tom Jones. No, not Tom Jones. A different singer. I can't remember.
A singer who's not Tom Jones.
Yeah, Tom Jones adjacent though.
Okay. So, yeah. What else do we want to talk about? Spoiler free. Is there anything else you would like to talk about? Because I feel like this movie keeps sort of like updating its plot as it goes. That there's not a lot of it I want to actually talk about without the spoiler warning.
Right. I think it's a fun premise. I think it's used really well. I've never read the book, so I don't know how faithful it is. I did read in the trivia, though, that Stephen King wanted Bill Murray to play the lead character, which would have been a very different film. But I do think Walken is great in it.
I mean, if Bill Murray played it serious, that could have been an interesting take.
In 83?
Mm-hmm. Because
we don't trust Stephen King to cast things.
No, not do I. I mean, Stephen King hates The Shining, and like
The Shining is a perfect film.
Yeah, I get that it's not your book, but you know, it's a masterpiece. So shut up, Stephen. Full spoilers is coming right up, but before we get to that, I will thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Borno, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are all our patrons at $20 or more. But you can support us for much less than that. Can't they, Tara?
That's right. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of The Ace, including some of our favorites from actors like David Carradine. Garrett Graham, who I happen to have a picture of.
You couldn't. I thought you were going to save that for Babylon 5. You couldn't wait. You had to whip out the photo of Garrett Graham.
And it's autographed. Yay. It was what was missing from my room.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews one day early, and some shows you get a week early. So please head over and check that out. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much. You can also support us for free by simply hitting like and subscribe, comment, that kind of things. We're at the mercy of the YouTube algorithm. I can't speak tonight. We're at its mercy. It's what deems success and failure.
And this is the first time that we've been recording since we hit 10K, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, 10,000 subscribers. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
You're wonderful people. So, hey. But yes, full spoilers for The Dead Zone from this point out. So, yeah, like I say, movie starts. He's got his Harry Potter haircut. Him
He's so
and
dorky.
him and fellow teacher, and he's dead excited. I thought there's a couple of really weird foreshadowing things in this. One is that he keeps bringing up Sleepy Hollow, because he later goes on to be in a Sleepy Hollow movie, and the other one being there's a lot of talk of Martin Sheen becoming president, and I'm like,
yeah,
well, technically the West Wing did kind of so this movie did prophesize things in a weird way. So
this movie had its own version of clairvoyance.
And hell, Walken was even in a movie called Prophecy. So there you go, it's all come full circle. So the movie starts, and he's teaching. He's very excited about it. He loves his job. He seems to like helping people and sharing the love of literature and all that kind of stuff. He seems to really love it. And seemingly loving him is Sarah, a fellow teacher. They joke about, can we get fired for kissing in the halls? Is that appropriate? And he takes her on a really windy day to a sort of pier, amusement park, yeah, with that old wooden roller coaster. And I guess this kind of implies that the power was coming anyway, because he kind of gets this weird headache like halfway through.
Yeah, so maybe he already had some sort of prophecy thing. I mean, his mom kind of acts strange, so maybe she also has it, or I don't know, like maybe maybe it's something inherited from her.
I like that idea because it explains kind of something with her later, if she also has this but has never talked about it, or maybe doesn't even understand it, but she sees something there.
She just gets feelings or something, but his is much more powerful. Or it's like that, but also it happens on a roller coaster where they're halfway through and they're both having a great time, and then he starts to get afraid, like on the roller coaster, or it seems to come off like he has a headache, and then he all of a sudden, like the noises from the coaster like start to become a little bit unnerving. So when he gets off and she's like, what's the matter? He's like, I don't know, they never used to bother me before. But so it's a little bit more of a fear of death also is coming in. Yeah,
well, I kind of because Daddy takes her back to her place, and she's like, hey, do you want to come in? And it starts raining, and he's like, I better not. And he says that a couple of times, right? Because she makes it very explicit the second time. She's like, you can spend the night, and sort of looks at him, and he's like, I better not. And I'm like, what are you doing? Karen Allen wants to sleep with you. Why are you being weird?
Or Brooke Adams. Yeah.
Or Brooke Adams, yes. Well, that was intentional. I was I'm doing it for the joke now. But he says I better not. And I kind of, like, in retrospect, looking back at that scene, even if he doesn't understand it, I actually think that headache on the roller coaster was him actually having some kind of, like, maybe not seeing it in the way that he does later, but feeling the premonition of the accident from later, where he crashes with the big truck. And I think the reason why he's saying I better not, and again, not consciously, he's not like, obviously thinking about this and knowing what's going to happen, but if we're talking about the movie being some sort of destiny thing where ultimately he has to stop what he's going to stop in the third act, the idea being that he has to get hit, he has to go in the coma, he has to go through this path, even though he would love to go with her and just be married to her. Or if he
feels like he is, like there's something, like I think maybe I might be in danger, like I better not be around the person I love.
Sure, yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Or even something like, and again, not consciously, but maybe he's like, oh, she's destined to be with someone else. She's destined to have this kid. She's destined to do all that. Although there's an interesting wrinkle in that later.
Well, he says, it's better to, some things are worth waiting for, which comes back again.
Which comes back in a really morally questionable scene, which I think we're supposed to be cool with it because this is our main character and this is his love interest. But I couldn't help but go, his poor husband kind of getting cheated on here for, I mean, and yeah, okay.
It just implied that they were waiting till marriage. I'm like, well, that's all right. That's a thing.
Sure, if that's what they want to do.
It sounds like his mom is super religious, so maybe that was just something instilled in him.
Now, technically, they did wait till marriage, just not their marriage.
Not breaking any rules.
So, yeah, obviously he he's in the accident. He wakes up and he's like questioning why there's no bandages on his arms. And that's because I've not seen it, so I didn't know there'd been that much of a time jump. And I went, it's because he's been there so long that all the wounds have healed. Like, that's what, I wasn't necessarily expecting 5 years. Because he doesn't notably notice that his parents look significantly older. So I assume it can't be that long. It's not like they've aged 15, 20 years or anything like
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, 5 years, that sounds reasonable, but it's enough time for the love of his life to sort of get over it, expect him to never wake up, go and marry someone else and have a kid, right? So it's that fine line. You got to find that sweet spot in your writing. So congratulations, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying here. Except it's the perfect amount of time, so good job. And he's struggling, he's very upset, he can barely walk. The doctor's very honest with him. It's going to be really painful. You're not going to be in a wheelchair your whole life, but he does seem to need a walking stick. I mean, maybe eventually he wouldn't need that either, but for the rest of the film, he is walking around with a limp. He is never quite 100%. But the big thing, of course, is that the nurse at one point touches his hand, and he gets this flash of her daughter in a burning house. And of course, we find out pretty quickly that this is real, and that her daughter, has just survived and been saved by firemen over at this burning house. And I think for a moment I was going to critique something here, and it kind of I sort of changed my mind as the movie went on, but I thought it was a bit strange at a glance that he seemed to completely understand what he was seeing at first. Like, he wasn't confused, he wasn't like, well, who am I seeing? But he knew it was her daughter, he knew that this was happening right now. And I was like, and as the movie went on, and he always seemed to know things. He always had sense of what he was looking at. It was never like a confusing image. He's like, we've seen that treated in other, telepathy, psychic stuff. And I think that kind of ties into the idea that there's a meaning behind him getting these things. Like, he's supposed to know what he's looking at. He's supposed to understand, because there's a purpose behind the message. Whether that's a God thing, whether that's something else, we can theorize and debate. But that's the first example of it. And news of this spreads that he proves it to the doctor, because the doctor touches his hand, and he sees a vision from the doctor's past where he was fleeing Germany, and his mother is like putting him in a car, and he never saw his mother again. He assumes she's dead, but Walken's like, no, she's alive, and I even know where she lives. And the doctor gets the number and hears her voice, but he doesn't talk to her because he believes it's not meant to be. Like, because he was never going to find this out if it hadn't been for this divine intervention. Right.
But I think it's an odd choice. Like, he thinks that Walken is doing this to mess around with destiny.
Well, that's actually the thing, because later on, we'll get into the context of it, but later on there's a character who's admittedly pretty evil in her own right, but there's a character later on who says he's the devil, or the devil sent him. And I actually thought at that point that, this movie's going to go to a dark place. Cronenberg's going to go full Cronenberg by the third act, and he's going to turn to a villain. I was expecting Walken to become a villain by the end of the movie.
Instead of it being like a gift from God, it's a gift from the devil.
Yeah.
A curse from the devil.
But honestly, at the end of the movie, like, I'm pretty sure he did the right thing, relatively speaking.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it seems like he did stop something that unquestionably was something that was worth stopping, regardless of the extreme measures that he maybe had to go to do it. I don't know. But the press got wind of the fire thing, so now he's on TV being interviewed, and this reporter's harassing him, and he's all jokey and stuff until he takes his hand and he starts talking about his sister and some weird thing that happened that no one's supposed to know.
Right.
And he's like, get away from me, you freak. But this is the scene that kills his mother, because his mother's watching this on TV, and she sees this, and now that you've suggested that maybe, because I never thought of this when I was watching it, but now that you've suggested that maybe she had something similar, or if not the same thing, and I'm wondering if this is the moment where she kind of saw where this was leading, that he was ultimately going to die. Because, I mean, we're in spoilers, he dies at the end of the movie. He dies doing the thing to save the world, basically. I'm like, she shouldn't take it, and her heart just kind of gives out essentially.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because this is not a first time watch for me, maybe I just noticed that more this time as I was able to look for it.
Sure, yeah.
It also, she just sort of acts a bit odd, like there's something else going on maybe, and in this world we know supernatural things can happen, so that would make sense that they would be linked.
No, it does. Because I just read the scene on my, as I was watching it as, her heart, because she's watching her son be exploited and she can't take it. My heart. Like, but honestly, you saying that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, thinking back to her scenes, I'm like, there's some, I mean, maybe she doesn't have the exact same strength of power, like, she doesn't get images per se, but if she gets like a feeling, kind of like he did maybe at the start of the film, if we're speculating that he felt something before the crash on the roller coaster, but didn't understand it, didn't really comprehend what it was. You know,
He had to go into a coma for 5 years to concentrate it.
yes. Well, you know,
Or some people get brain damage and become like savants and all of a sudden have an incredible skill at something. Maybe it's something like that.
It fixed his hair though. The coma fixed his hair. He came out with Christopher Walken hair.
And he went on a diet. Good for him. Lost some weight.
I don't think it's quite technically a diet where you're just lying in a coma and not eating, except from what they're feeding you through a tube.
Right.
But the other big thing that happens while he's still in the hospital is that, of course, Sarah comes to visit him. Because he finds out from his parents that she's married. And she's like, in fact, the mother refers to her as like, she turned her back on you. She's with another man.
She abandoned you.
And I almost expect her just to look like they go, that bitch.
Yeah, right. But I mean, like, okay, because that's her baby boy.
Yeah.
Who's going to be hurt by this. But like, what is the point, or where is the line that you draw where you're like, well, I've waited a while. This person's giving me attention, and I don't know if he's going to wake up. And we're not married.
Yeah. I could have almost had a running gag here of like I almost wanted her to run into her and just be like, yell something at her like, hey Sarah, you slut, and just walk away. Just like, what did that old woman say to me?
Yeah.
But she comes in, she's got a new haircut and they talk. Still looks like Nancy or Kirstie Allen. Not Nancy Allen, different person.
Just call her Brooke Adams.
Brooke Adams, yes, Brooke Adams.
And then you won't mix up the Nancy and the Karen.
True. I'll just say Miss Allen. Miss Allen shows. No, but yeah, Brooke Adams shows up, and because obviously she still wants to see him, she still cares. But this is such an awkward situation, and it's hard not to feel impossibly sorry for him. It's hard not to just feel super sympathetic because
I mean, for him, he says it's like, I just went to sleep and woke up, and it's 5 years later. I'm still in love with you. Like,
yeah,
we still like said we were getting married yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. He literally said to him last night. He said, "I'm going to marry you." That's what he said the night before. So, and she mentions she's got a son as well, which was something that the parents conveniently left that part out. Maybe not to give him too much of a blow at once. Like,
Yeah.
you know, maybe he's thinking, I can maybe win her back from the husband. They've got a kid together. That makes it harder. That's
Yeah. Makes it harder.
I was going to stroll in there, do my, like
Kids complicating things.
Yeah, I was going to go in there, talk the talk, walk the walking, and win her back.
The Walken. That's so stupid.
You're laughing. It got a laugh. I thank you very much. You're welcome.
Take it back.
Never. So, and it's kind of awkward, and she cries. She breaks down in the car when she's driving away. Obviously, this is a lot for her too. And it is this impossible thing because it's not this new husband's fault that she had like an ex who fell into this situation. And obviously she's conflicted because it's not like he cheated on her. It's not like they broke up nastily. It's like this was someone she cared about who was in an accident, and effectively in her mind she'd sort of accepted as dead.
Yeah, he was gone. Yeah.
So when she pops back up, when she intentionally comes to visit him when he's living with his dad after this, with her son no doubt, and comes in. The son falls asleep eventually, and he's nice to him. He's good with kids. He's a teacher. This is what he does. And they have like a moment, and I actually thought this was going to turn out to be like a dream or something because it was so like perfect for what like his fantasy. Because she leans in and says, "The last time we were alone together, you said, good things come to those who wait, or whatever. Things are worth the wait, and I think we've waited long enough." And I'm like, what's gonna so it leads
she starts to unbutton her very tight cardigan sweater.
And it cuts away. Okay, so they're having a love scene, they're having sex, fine, whatever. But I was thinking, okay, so what, she's breaking up with her husband or whatever. But as he's walking her to the car, he's like, I'm not going to see you again. And she's like, not like this. And I'm like, wait, this was like we had to consummate the thing, but now it's done. I'm like,
this was our unfinished business.
I kind of feel bad for the husband. I like, it's hard to be rooting for you two in this context. All right.
I do too. I'm sympathetic. but I don't hate it. Like, it's such a weird situation, you know? Like, he was in a coma for 5 years.
Note to self: don't trust anyone who's got an ex who's in a coma. No, I just like it's hard. It's impossible for me.
It's like your dead husband like coming back to life for one day. You're like, well,
no,
I gotta.
No, if I'm the new husband, I don't care how many dead husbands are coming back from the dead. No, I'm not okay with any of it. Now, admittedly, later on he's campaigning for the politician who's inevitably going to nuke the planet. So maybe he's a bit of a scumbag, and maybe that makes me feel a bit better about it.
Yes.
But
and somehow has recruited her into it as well.
Yes, because they're campaigning for evil Martin Sheen. But that's much later, because we have the whole serial killer thing in the middle. Because it's actually
because he's on TV, he gets noticed.
Yeah, because Tom Skerritt, right, from Alien, hit film.
Dallas.
Dallas from Alien, yes. For a second there, I thought you were you were not correcting me, but you were adding on. He was in Dallas. I'm like, oh no, you mean that's his name from Alien? Yeah.
His name.
He was Dallas. He shows up as sheriff, and this is before the love scene, because I think it's quite notable because he basically doesn't want anything to do with this. He doesn't want help, because like, you know, this has been a brutal serial killer who's been doing this for like almost his whole coma. Apparently, this has been going on for years while he's been asleep, and the sheriff has
like
no
3.5 years.
Yeah, he's no leads. He's like at his wit's end. It's a bit of a long shot, but maybe the new psychic will be able to help solve this. He doesn't want anything to do with it, but it's not until after like he sort of like finishes his business, if we're putting it that way, with Miss Allen, that he is like, you know what, I'm going to help. I'm going to try and do the right thing, and I'm going to help, because we do get the sense
Adams, not Allen.
No, I meant that one.
Okay.
That was a joke. I don't know what's funnier, the fact that you keep thinking I'm not doing it intentionally. Correct me.
I knew you were doing it intentionally the last time. This one legitimately sounded like a mistake. Just call her Adams. Brooke Adams. She's her own woman, damn it.
I don't know. They're interchangeable. Is it? Just take one out, put the other one in.
How dare you say that about women?
Not all women, just these two. Right, so then he agrees, and they go to a crime scene. He touches some evidence. It doesn't work, and there's no indication that it should work, because you know, every time it's been a person's, you know, they have to touch skin to skin. It's like he's always holding someone's hand or something to that effect. And he but there's another murder, and it's like, oh goody, there's a new corpse to go and touch. So that was a really bad sentence out of context. I apologize. So they take him to the crime scene, and he touches the hand, and we get this extended. He basically watches the victim's last few minutes.
Yeah, this is interesting because so much of this movie is very PG-13, except for the scene. This is the one scene that we get that it feels very like is explicit.
I would say this scene, and also the scene where they go to arrest the guy at his house, is also pretty R-rated.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe just this serial killer section in general is kind of
it's just odd because so much of the movie, like, first of all, you have Cronenberg behind the camera, but then also there's so much of this movie that has accidents and death or people in danger that you would think there would be more premonitions of death, you know? But it just seems odd. Like, it seems like they were really careful to keep the movie PG-13, but then
it's not,
we get breast in this section, and then we get the shot of what happens to the killer.
Yeah, there's this thing from the 70s and 80s. Not that it died out completely afterwards, but it's especially notable in those eras where there seems to be this attitude of boobs. Doesn't matter the context, but boobs are good in movies, and it's like, no, context is important. He's already killed her, I think, at this point, and he rips off her top. I mean,
he's punched her, but I think he's known for stabbing.
Yes, he's got like a pair of scissors. It's like a surgical scissors that he likes to stab people with.
Yeah. So I don't know if she's just unconscious at this point or if she's dead, but he definitely hits her where she gets her lights out.
Yeah, but I definitely get that attitude from. And I'm not necessarily accusing Cronenberg of this, but there's a lot of sleazy movies from this time period where, like, oh, we want some nudity. Oh, we'll throw in a rape scene. Well, but that's not titillating. Like, don't,
No.
that does. If you want to have a sleazy scene with it, like, do something stupid. Do a scene in the girls' locker room where they all just start pillow fighting or something. At least I understand. At least it's genuine. At least your intentions are clear, and I understand what the point of the scene is. Do it in a sleazy rape scene just makes me think you're messed up. You might need to go to jail, director, because you clearly have something wrong in your head. Anyway, well, I'm saying that about Cronenberg, but just general feeling, okay. But it turns out to be the deputy, like it's the cop who's been with Tom Skerritt the whole time. So
That's
we have
how
this.
he's able to cover his tracks so well.
Yeah, exactly. But he goes to their house where it turns out his mum knew about it the whole time because like Walken like touches her and she's like, you knew. And she's like, you're the devil sent you. I'm like, you're covering for your serial killer son, you know, picnic yourself, lady.
Mm-hmm.
What's
I like
wrong
that
with
he
you?
has his serial killer outfit
Oh, he
that
does,
he has
yeah.
to change into.
He does. He's got like his outfit that he puts on, and he kills himself in like the most like wonderful little dark way possible. He said the scissors that he uses to kill other people, he sort of props them up in this bottle, and then like basically just shoves his own head onto them. So
Yeah.
we don't get to see the impact, but we see him like, almost doing it, and then when we find the dead body, he's got these like scissors sticking up his like nose and mouth. It's suitably nasty.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. The mum tries to shoot Walken. Well, she does shoot Walken on his arm. But Skerritt's there to save the day and kill her. So.
And then just disappears. I thought we would get more of him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's what I mean by sections, because Karen Allen basically disappears from the movie. That was intentional. My God, woman.
We talked about this. Just call her Brooke Adams.
I don't remember Brooke. I don't know who Brooke Adams is. She's an imposter, is what she is. This is just Karen Allen's way of getting like double jobs. She just pretends to be two different people. Yes, Brooke Adams just disappears as well. Like, after the love scene, we don't see her for ages because we have the whole serial killer plot. She's not around, and even the start of the next section of the film, and Christopher Walken's moved on. He's got his own little place. He's teaching like privately. He's tutoring kids. Like, so he can't maybe control a whole class now with his injuries, but he can take a kid, give them special attention, that kind of thing.
He's got a nice house too.
It's not bad, and this rich guy comes over to him and says, "Hey, my son's having trouble. I'd like you to tutor him." And he agrees, and the guy like gets him picked up, fancy, gets a chauffeur to bring him to his big mansion to teach his like troubled son. And Walken's really good with the kid. The kid opens up to him and they banter, and they're smiling and laughing, and he seems to be doing quite well.
And he's bonding with the father too. He's kind of making a friend again.
Yeah, kinda. And this is where we introduce Martin Sheen, who's over. He's running for Senate, and he's over, basically trying to get a donator out of the rich dude. And the rich dude basically admits afterwards, like, yeah, this is a scumbag. Register to vote and don't vote for him because he's terrible. I'm not going to piss him off because if he wins, I don't want to be like a target. So I'll be nice enough, but I don't want him to win. Kind of attitude.
Right, which is setting up another scene where we see what Martin Sheen does to his opponents.
Yes, as well, specifically his it's just a reporter who's going to do it's like an editorial about him and who he is, and it's not pleasant. Right. So he shows up with his like bodyguard goon in his like newspaper office and whips out some photos of this reporter with like a girl.
We assume a girl, a young girl.
Yeah.
That's not his wife. We know it's not his wife.
Yes, but it turns out this girl works for Martin Sheen, and this was all set up so they'd have leverage. And like, did you know he was going to like say a bad thing about you in the newspaper?
They just wanted to control the paper.
Yeah. So he threatens him, and this is going to like quiet it all down. So this tells us that he's definitely a bad guy. It's not just one guy's opinion. We see him be a complete evil shit in this scene, and he comes across smarmy. He's on TV. He's doing his
he's very used car salesman.
Yeah. He's what is it about crappy politicians with hats? They all have like this is a hard hat for something. It's like I'm a working man's politician.
That's right. He's good to the working class, and he's good for the rich. It's good for everybody. Yeah, that was in the middle.
Yeah, there was a point where they're listing everyone that he's good for, everyone that he wants to support, and they just list everyone. It was like he's good for the poor, for the rich, for the white, the black. It's like, well, so he's got no targets then. He just blanket, just good for everyone. Okay. So I mean, we do run into Brooke Adams,
Thank you.
Because we have this chance encounter with our husband. Our husband's like campaigning and showing up, and shows up at Walken's door, and he's like, "Hey, I'm tutoring someone. I don't have time to listen to your spiel." He's like, "Oh, can I give you like a brochure or something?" And he's like, "Sure, yeah, whatever." And he's like, "Hey, honey, can you come and hand this man a leaflet, please?" And up she walks, and it's this awkward moment, and you can tell the husband's uncomfortable. He's like, "Oh, she's talked about you a lot."
You guys screwed, didn't you?
Walken can be so smug when he wants to be as well. I almost wish he went full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell that she's been saying some real nice things about him.
Yes. Like,
to the point where the guy with her husband, who should be secure. Well, we know otherwise.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, I mean, if she's, presumably when she first spoke about him, it was when he was still in a coma, so therefore still considered essentially dead. So she probably didn't hold back. She was probably, "Oh yeah, I was in love with him. We were going to get married. It was it was a perfect relationship. But unfortunately he died. So now I'm here with you." So when he wakes up and he's walking around and talking, and he's like, now he's an option again.
Yeah,
you get why he.
The
would
husband realizes, wait a second, I'm the rebound.
This is the true love of her life. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. But this leads, because he actually starts crying, and the kid, the rich guy's kid's there, and he's kind of like a little friend for him. He, Walken hugs him, and it leads to like a premonition that's important. But it's actually quite a good scene before that, just like with him, like, because Walken just breaks down because he never wanted to meet this husband. He didn't want to be part of this. He wanted to be far away from this as possible. This is too hard.
It's still very hard for him. Yeah.
And it's no one's fault. It's just a awful situation for everyone involved. But then he gets the premonition that the kid is going to die by falling through ice into a frozen lake.
Yeah, you see a bunch of kids going through the lake in hockey gear.
Yes. And for a second, Tara thought she was back in the home country.
This is a real fear that I used to have as a kid, probably because of this movie. This movie and The Omen 2 or 3.
Oh, everyone had the icing, yes.
Yeah, the one with the icing. I think it was 2. Those both, like, because I grew up in Canada, where in an area called the Okanagan, which was just a big lake and then mountains surrounding the lake, and I lived on one of the mountains, and the school bus would like go down a very steep hill in the winter, which was like 6 months of the year, and then just the frozen lake would be there all winter. So it was like a very real fear that I had that the bus would go over.
Yeah, that's just something that like obviously gets cold in the winter, but it doesn't get cold enough that anyone would ever consider going on to, like, I don't even think the water freezes enough for it to even look like you can go on it, but no one would ever consider doing it. It's just not. Yeah, it doesn't get that cold. Well, that's the thing.
Even in the lake was so big that it wouldn't freeze entirely, but like most of the area around the shore would all be frozen, and further out, maybe like 100 feet.
Yeah. So this is something that in movies that are set in, like, your Minnesota area, that kind of part of the America where they play hockey. Like, oh, let's go out in the lake and play hockey.
Well,
like,
I'm sure this is Maine.
Sure.
This is Stephen King. Doesn't he always write in Maine?
He does. I'm pretty sure they mentioned it's Maine at one point.
Yeah. It's probably Maine or
Castle Rock's
Vermont.
definitely Maine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes. But yeah. So yeah, the idea of going to the frozen lake is just such a alien thing to anyone who lives here, but
yeah, well, usually like kids play hockey on like a frozen pond, not like a big lake.
Yeah, so at least if they fall through it, it's not deep enough to like oh well, I guess they're dead. So Walken goes around. In fact, probably Walken's standout performing moment of the whole movie, when he's trying to convince the dad, because he's like, you know who I am, you've heard that I've predicted things and that I've heard things. He's like, yeah, but I hired you as a teacher, which I actually thought was kind of a sweet point. It's like, no, I wanted you because you're good at your job, not because you've got this special
I wasn't
ability.
trying to exploit your whatever that thing is.
And Walken gets so like wound up that he's not like listening to him about cancelling this hockey, which is this afternoon. It's not even like it's in the distant future. It's like this afternoon they're going out for hockey practice. And he like smashes like a glass bowl or something with his cane. He just smashes it. It's like, the ice is gonna break, and he's really Christopher Walken. He was full Walken, and it's
super shouty.
It's great. And he apologizes for it afterwards. He's like, okay, you've agreed not to go on the ice, right? And it turns out he lies, but the kid believes him enough that the kid refuses to go, but the dad still takes the team, and then two kids die. And Walken tries to call him afterwards, and the kid picks up, but the dad's just sitting there like a zombie, just feeling horrible, presumably.
Yeah.
That you could have listened to him.
But that's the thing, like, why would you? I don't believe any psychics.
No, I think that's fair. But I think if a psychic told you not to do something and then you did it anyway and it got two kids killed, you probably would feel like absolutely like.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
there was a line from the doctor like pretty early in the film also when he predicts or when he's able to tell him that his mother's alive, and then he finds out. He says, "You are either like have something new or like the oldest thing that a human can do," which I assume is like being a con artist or lying. Yeah. So it could just be the dad's like, "Look, you're a great teacher and you're perfect for my son. You're what he needs right now, but like this whole, don't try to con me with your premonition stuff."
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about it is that even though he was right, obviously this relationship is done because, like, Walken feels awkward talking to the kid. The dad clearly is just mortified about everything. So it still kind of ostracizes Walken's character from civilization.
Yeah.
Even though he was doing a good thing, even though he's trying to do the best thing for everyone at all times, he's still kind of separated because he's different now. And it's just there's a kind of sad tragedy to the whole thing that he's got this burden. So even though ultimately, he's destined to do this great thing, and I say great in the sense that it's going to save a lot of people, even though it's not a pleasant thing. It's not something that obviously he's going to be excited about. But so
there's a trivia thing that I read also that I guess Cronenberg like shot a gun with blanks in it in order to get him to do the flinching every time he touched somebody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that the jolting was real from the gunshots.
Americans. Or Canadians. He's Canadian, I think, but still.
Yeah.
Still.
One of my people.
He went to America and made movies, so he was assimilated.
He made movies in Canada first, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
because I think Shivers and stuff was all Canadian.
Yeah,
Canadian production.
Rabid was definitely Canadian. Yeah, Shivers.
I've seen that
too,
one,
but
I didn't really care much for Rabid. It was okay.
It's okay. I like Shivers more. It's a really weird concept. It's like it's like a sex disease where anyone who catches it just is like so horny they just try to like attack anyone who's like near them, kind of thing. So, but it works. It works in the context of the movie. It's a really interesting idea. The idea of like sexual, not sexually transmitted, but like a viral transmission of like rabid sex hunger. It's an interesting concept. It's very Cronenberg, but it works. Anywho, so he goes to this little rally because literally there's a little park across his house is where this like town meeting's where Martin Sheen's going to do speeches and whatnot, and he's shaking everyone's hands, and he's actually just looking for Brooke Adams. He's just like, I think he just wants to see her, but he ends up getting his hand shook by Martin Sheen, and the vision he gets is like the diabolical him pressing the nuke button. He's like hitting the nuke button. I
like the little future like James Bond looking briefcase
with a hand scanner.
How you gotta scan your hand, and then you have to get some other guy, like I don't know, some general to scan his.
I mean, he's only running for senator right now, so it has to be at least a number of years in the future before he becomes president. So
right.
I guess this was just their way of saying, okay, so let's say this is another 15 years out of the future before he's president, or whatever. We're going to just do a little bit of technology to make it feel futuristic.
I love it.
Yes, but he basically threatens the I don't know what the rank was.
I think he's a general.
Was a general? To scan his hand to confirm the nuke order, and then he presses the big red button.
Super crazy too. I love it.
Oh, he starts yelling. Yeah. And this is kind of where the movie really becomes what it's about and what it's been building up to, because he goes to the doctor, who notably is German as well, which I think is important for this. And he says,
he's Polish.
Oh, he's Polish, sorry. Yeah, but the idea being during World War II, he suffered and had to evacuate and all the rest of it. But he asks him, if you could go back in time, and it's this thing, if you could go back in time and kill Hitler, would you? And obviously he's not talking about time travel, he's sort of doing it from the other perspective, which is if you know someone's going to eventually become Hitler, do you stop it? Do you step in and do whatever it takes, no matter how bad it is, to end it? And And it's funny because you think the doctor's going a different way with his speech, because he finally agrees to answer, and he's like, well, I'm a doctor, I took an oath to, you know, help people, heal people, save people, so you think he's building up to, well, no, because I took an oath not to hurt anyone, but he builds up because he says, no, my oath was to save people, so yeah, absolutely, I'd kill the son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Like, of course I would. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a fair answer.
Even if it would mean like you're definitely not going to make it also.
Yeah, and that's just to me where I think the tone really comes back around, where it's like, to anyone else in the world, he is going to appear to be this crazy person who tries to assassinate someone, or maybe succeeds, because we don't know if he's going to succeed at this point. And he doesn't succeed. He actually alters the future by trying to, but it's obviously through a different reason. But you know, him like getting the gun, cleaning it, you know, traveling to where this little, you know, speech is going to be made, going up into the balcony with his gun, and getting ready to assassinate him. Like, all of this, the build up to it, it has this really interesting feeling to it, because you hear him narrating the letter that he's sending to Brooke Adams' character, and it all has this kind of feeling of, like, yeah, no one is ever going to, everyone's going to look at him like a crazy man who murdered someone, and no one's ever going to understand what he helped prevent or cause. And it's kind of this, and it's not that I think the point of the story is to like maybe suggest that, oh, someone who's done something like this in the past, were they secretly saving the world and we just never knew about it. But it's an interesting thought to think about, that no one will ever know that they really actually saved the world. Everybody
considers the Hitler question at some point in their life, right? Like, would you do it? Would you kill Hitler as a baby or something if you can go back in time? It's like, I don't want to kill a baby.
Of course not.
Awful, but like, yeah, it's Hitler, so.
the thing with the time travel argument, though, is you open this can of worms where then it's like, well, yeah, but you have the butterfly effect, so how much changes because we don't go through World War II? How many things after, you know, did certain people ally in the same way? Yeah, it's the final countdown question. Right? Yeah. Well, this is interesting because this is before it happens. This is like, this is what's going to happen. And you know, the doctor explains the dead zone, this idea of like, this missing part where you can alter the future, you can alter what happens in the premonition, and
this is more of the Minority Report problem. Like, if somebody is going to commit a crime in the future, but you stop them before they do it, are they really a criminal because they didn't actually commit it? There's that.
There's a little bit of that. I mean, I think it helps for us that we see him be an evil dick even before this.
Oh yeah,
it's like,
he's super.
We know that he's never going to do anything good. He's a bad person who's going to manipulate, and so on and so on. So it's a really interesting dynamic for the movie to go down, and I think it's the most interesting kind of question that it starts to pose with its concept. Because I was really wondering, like, halfway through the movie, like, you know, what's this really about ultimately? Like, where is this going? Like, because I was starting to think, oh, maybe he's going to get consumed with power. People are going to fear him. He's going to turn into a villain. You know, is this going to be more like almost like middle-aged man Carrie, where he starts to go kind of evil and crazy because the world just won't accept who he is now? And that could be saying a whole lot on its own, but it's a very interesting dynamic. But he tries to shoot him, of course. It's actually Brooke Adams' character who's there, who spots him and yells his name, which causes him to miss. And essentially, he is shot and falls to his death, but one of the things that happens here is that Martin Sheen picks up Brooke Adams' child, who's like a baby,
and shield,
and holds it in front as a shield. And the photographers who are there,
pretty low.
Yeah, photographers who are there capture this image, and when Martin Sheen comes over to ask him, who are you? Why did you do this or whatever? He just like grabs his hand and sees the new premonition, which is that Martin Sheen is going to commit suicide because his political career is ruined because there's a photo of him using a baby as a shield.
As a human shield.
So even though he didn't succeed in the assassination, although maybe by proxy technically he did, because Martin Sheen's going to kill himself, so arguably he kind of did a domino effect kind of way.
Yeah, he was able to change things.
But that's not the important part. The important part is that his political career is over, and therefore he will never murder millions of people. And he says goodbye. So it is kind of this tragedy. It's this like heroic tragedy almost of him saving the world, but basically accepting his own death, and that he's never going to be with the woman that he wants to be with. He's never going to have anything. He has to accept that this is his end.
But at least he dies knowing that he was the hero of the world.
Yeah. And she does tell him that she loves him as he's dying, and that's kind of the end of the movie. but will she ever really believe? She'll get the letter, because it's like even like he explained it in the letter exactly what he was doing. He just said you'll never.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
He just said she'll never understand. So yeah, I think the movie kind of ultimately does get to a point where it feels like real science fiction, because it gets to this point where, okay, so what are the moral implications of this choice? There's definitely a bit of spiritualism, because it is obviously the only discussion that's ever had about where this comes from or what the point is the words destiny, the words gift from God, things like that. But the idea of like, okay, this moral dilemma of murdering this man who's going to murder millions of people if he doesn't, and we see really clearly from the context of this premonition as well that it's it's unnecessary, that he is doing this out of spite, out of the wrong reasons. It's not like
there's people there telling him like we've reached a peaceful resolution, like you don't need to do this, and he goes, I've already pushed the button, the nukes are on the air, stuff like that. Yeah, he's got mad.
Yes, so I think that's where the movie gets super interesting. Up until that point, it's a fascinating exploration of like how this man, but I don't think the premonitions were as much of the focus of the movie as I was expecting, bizarrely, because the movie did kind of like at times sort of leave them and have him like start teaching again and things like that. It does slow down and let his character grow.
Yeah, it's mostly just about him dealing with this new ability in different scenarios and how it's affected his life.
Yeah, and how he kind of finds meaning out of something. Because obviously early on, when he's told he's been given this gift, I expect it's the sheriff who says that to him. He gets really upset and says, I was dealt a shitty hand by God. I was hit by an 18-wheeler or whatever it was, and I was in a coma. The person I love is with someone else. I got the worst hand ever. But ultimately, that's kind of why he's kind of a hero in a sense, because despite all of that, he still wants to save everyone when the opportunity is presented with him. He still goes to do the right thing. He has a moment of bitterness, and anyone would, given what he's went through, but once he sort of collects himself, he does try to help and do the right thing,
Yeah, I was thinking when this movie was added to the list, like I didn't really think it was very sci-fi, because it is, to me, always been like a supernatural movie. But I suppose the ending, we do get a little bit of future tech.
Well, it's not just the future, it's the moral dilemma that he's given.
Yeah.
And try to alter the future that I think puts it into sci-fi. And the fact that we would say, I mean, not that every episode of Twilight Zone is strictly science fiction, but I do think that it feels like a good episode of Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But with obviously a lot more character development, because you've got almost 2 hours instead of 25 minutes to do the thing. But yeah, and Walken's very memorable. It's a good movie. It's not like, it doesn't feel like Cronenberg's biggest movie by any means. I can kind of see why this slipped through my cracks in a weird way. Obviously it's a staple on TV and stuff, but because I missed it, I can kind of see why it was never one that was recommended enough to go and seek out. It was never on the top of the best of list to go and make sure you watch. It was always kind of on the periphery. But I am glad I watched it. It was nice to see a few of the faces that are in here, especially Karen Allen, because I like her a lot. And
yeah, even the guy who played the father of the boy was very familiar to me, but I didn't really look him up. I don't know who he is.
I did not.
He had great eyebrows.
He did look familiar to me as well. In fact, I'm going to click on him. Oh, he was in something we watched recently. He was in the Omega Man.
Okay.
So there you go. Much later in life, he was in The Matrix Reloaded, of all things. So we'll be seeing him again. That might be it,
because I remember him. I remember the eyebrows, but I remember them being white.
Sure.
Was he the main villain in the Omega Man? Matthias or something?
Oh, I don't. He is, yeah, Matthias. Good memory.
It wasn't that long ago. We watched it.
Oh. Joe, I saw his credits stopped at 2016, and I thought, oh, maybe he passed away, but he's actually not died yet. He's just, I guess, enjoying his.
I hope he's enjoying his indoor time.
Yes, his later years. Indoors. Yes, the indoors. But no, he's having enjoying his later years. He's actually got one thing in pre-production. I tell a lie, but his last thing before that was 2016, and they were kind of sparse. He's only got a couple of things. He seemed to start working regularly around 2004. So fair play. And enjoy.
He wasn't in Star Trek Insurrection, was he?
Oh, let me scroll down to 1998. He is 1998.
Okay, that's where I know him from.
I'm a little disappointed now you didn't immediately say he's from Star Trek. He's
Yeah, I knew his face. I'm like, oh, okay, I remember the white eyebrows. I don't think it was the Matrix that I was thinking of. I remember the uniform he was wearing.
And he's also in an episode of Tales from the Crypt that I did with Tim, as well as an episode of Frasier, which I definitely saw at some point. So, yeah, he's been around. He's popped up.
He's that guy.
Yeah. Oh,
What's his name?
He's in a really famous episode of Twilight Zone. Actually, he's in one of the stories that was also in the original movie, which is the blind men one
Of Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry. Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt. Sorry.
Okay.
Did I say Twilight Zone? I meant Tales from the Crypt. Because I'm talking to you. We talk about Twilight Zone. Yes. So yes, his name.
You guys haven't done the Tales from the Crypt movie.
Yeah, we did.
The Devil of Blood.
No, that one. We did the original Tales from the Crypt, which is way before, because we did that before the show, because it was before.
Okay.
Because it was made in the 70s.
Never mind.
And at least 2 of those stories showed up as episodes in the show later, which the one he was in was.
Okay.
So
you really should do Bordello of Blood and Demon Knight.
We'll get to him. Tim wants to do them too. It's like he's on paternity leave. Okay, it's going to be a little while.
Well, in celebration of his return and his new child, Bordello of Blood and Demon Knight are on the menu.
I'm already giving him Leprechaun Back in the Hood as his returning gift. Let's not get nuts. Anyway, the actor's name is Anthony Zerbe, or Zerbe, maybe. So
great eyebrows.
Very good eyebrows, yes, very impressive. I enjoyed the movie. It was good. I think it feels like it kind of has a almost Cronenberg feeling, but it obviously does not go to Cronenberg levels in almost any way.
No, not really.
Which is fine. That's not a big deal.
It has a good atmosphere, though, which I think a good director can achieve.
I mean, hell, my favorite Cronenberg movie is A History of Violence, which arguably doesn't really have any Cronenberg. It's just a really well-made movie. So.
I disagree.
You may disagree all you want, but wait, make sure you're not thinking of Eastern Promises, because you've made this mistake before where you've accused me of
I haven't seen Eastern Promises. I saw that greasy sex scene.
Okay, you saw a clip.
It was so weird.
You saw a clip of the naked fight. Okay.
No. I'm talking about A History of Violence.
No, you're not.
I've seen the film.
What naked? There's no greasy naked fight scene in that film.
There's no fight scene. It's just a sex scene, and it's gross.
Oh, sex scene. Oh yes, there's a sex scene in it. But there's a naked fight scene in Eastern Promises where Vigo's got his wang flapping around.
Yeah, I know. It's on my Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. Well, I really enjoy A History of Violence, but that's not sci-fi, so we never have to argue about that. So it's fine. We can put it to the side.
And Cronenberg is Star Trek now, because he's been in Discovery season 3.
Yes, and he was wasted, and they did nothing with him. But
they did something with him.
He was there to yell in one scene in the finale. It was like, what's the point?
He was there for George O's plot.
The poor man got like carted out to like wherever they shoot that show.
Maybe he's just a fan.
Maybe he is. He probably is. And that's why.
He's got a good look, you know.
I think he saw his son's new film and he went, you know what? I've messed my son up. He's making really deranged stuff. I'm just going to go and be in Star Trek because that sounds like fun.
I need something wholesome.
Oh dear. But yeah, that's Dead Zone. I guess we're going to rate the movie. So what do you want to give the Dead Zone out of 10?
I really like this movie. I find it very enjoyable, and I think it's a really great performance from Christopher Walken. So I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the same score. I think it's just shy for me of the great, which is where kind of I think of like an 8 and up is sort of.
If we'd gotten some brutal deaths, I think. A little bit more brutality, and it would have been.
I think if we had the real Karen Allen and not some knockoff, maybe.
I like Brooke Adams. She's really good in that Terrence Malick movie.
I'm just cracking jokes because I think it's so funny that she looks identical to Karen Allen. She's perfectly fine. Like, I have no problems with her. But yeah, that's not. Yeah, I think the performance is good, and it's one that may even grow on me in time the more I see it. But I think it's a really solid movie as it is. It kind of falls in similar quality to me to a lot of the 70s movies we've done in 70s months, where I think it's kind of on that range of the better end of that stuff. So, cool.
But it is an 80s movie.
It's an 80s movie, yes.
It does feel kind of 70s, but yeah.
I'm just comparing it because it reminds me of them a little bit. All right, what do we usually do now? Oh yes, if you
do next time.
We don't usually do that immediately, but we could do that first if you want. I hope I've actually decided that, but as I go to look at the schedule, this is why you don't spring it on me. You let me like build up to it. So
I thought you were asking me what we do next.
No, what did I do next? The keyword's the next thing, but you've asked me about it, so we're doing it. We're doing what's coming next now.
Okay.
Next time on the show, we are doing a film called Death Watch that I know next to nothing about. Tara found it on the Criterion channel and said we should do this. And
that's Harvey Keitel's in that.
Harvey Keitel, yes. Another classic actor in the next episode.
I don't know anything about this movie. I mean, I read the synopsis and it sounded like a movie for us.
Sure, but yeah, we have no idea if it's going to be any good, if it's a turd, or whatever.
It's on the Criterion app right now. It's not a Criterion film. It's just on the app.
Yes, there's a bit of a distinction there. But so that's what's coming next time, and that is episode 99, which is important because the one after it.
Yeah, we're in triple digits.
Triple digits, yeah. So yes, what I usually do after the ratings is tell you if you made it this far in the review, you can go to the comment section on YouTube and put in the word knock off Karen Allen, right?
What?
That phrase. Put in knock off Karen Allen in the comments.
I disapprove.
This is what you do.
Or you can put Brooke Adams, her real name.
Don't give them competing keywords for the comments. You'd start a civil war.
don't say things like that. Not right now.
So yes, nothing particularly notable, I don't think, in the IMDb user reviews that I like to always glance at and see if there's anything funny. I feel like this is one of these movies that's just, it's been obviously around for a long time, a lot of good high reviews for it. I'm sure people just
generally like it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, yeah, it's pretty good. Watch it.
It'd be nice if I could like click in a filter and like go to the 1-star reviews and see what they're saying.
I'm surprised you can't.
Maybe I've just not found the thing. Oh wait, hold on. Show all 1 star. Okay, I've just never thought about doing it before. There's 2 1-star reviews.
Damn.
Out of hundreds.
They probably just really like Martin Sheen's character.
Do you know what? I'm just going to read this first one because I want to see what they say about this. All right, so this is a 1-star review from Rumpelstiltskin 1 from 2005.
Well, we can't.
We can't trust this man's opinions.
We can't trust the rump.
The rump. All I can say to you would be buyers, do not buy this film. There is nothing to look forward to in this film. No mystery, suspense, drama, romance, action, or anything else. I was very
there's no action, but literally has all the rest of that stuff in there.
I was very disappointed with this film since most kind of adaptations from novels to films are great to watch. I feel like the average is actually on the other end of the spectrum, but all right, what do you say? Especially from this time period.
Yeah. This
one, however, was a shocker. I genuinely could not wait for the credits to come up and go to bed. I'm also at a loss for words to why this film has an R rating, where there's virtually no violence, sex, or swearing. There's literally boobs. We talked about boobs in a violent murder scene. What? What do you want? And then it complains that there's no extras in the DVD. So, whatever. So
this guy sounds like a real Dreamcatcher fan. That's a horrible, horrible Stephen King adaptation, which is sci-fi, so we will do it.
Yeah, and then I won't read the whole second one, but the end of it says, Walken doesn't save this movie, as there's no movie to speak of to be saved.
Okay.
These people are really upset.
Yeah.
Really upset. Do you know what? I'm glad I can do that, because we're basically just always going to look at the 1-star reviews now. That's going to be the section. 1-star reviews on IMDb. Let's see what they say.
There's so many reviews that have 0 stars. just because I guess you could write reviews before they gave a star system on IMDb. They tend to be older reviews.
Yeah, interesting. You can't filter those. You can't pick that. So interesting. There you go. That's all that. So at this point of the show, I will remind you once again of patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for some monies, get some bonus episodes, get some stuff early. Go and have a look and see if you're interested. And of course, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Get us on Twitter at mail_fuzz for channel updates. Tara, would you like to promote anything that else we do? Maybe something that you can hold up some visual media to represent as you talk about it?
You mean this photo of the man with the hair?
Yes. Yes, very tall hair. Yes,
very tall hair. Sorry about the reflection. It's being protected until I get a frame. This is Garrett Graham, who is the star of the one episode of the show.
I was going to say, the star of Babylon, that's a bit of a stretch. The star of Babylon.
He's definitely the star of season 1 of Babylon 5.
A character named Londo has something to say about that.
Well, he has better hair than Londo.
Can't believe you would say such a thing.
Anyway, so yeah, we're reviewing Babylon 5 right now. We're in season 1. We're almost at the end. Maybe we are at the end by the time this goes up. I'm not sure. Probably not.
No.
But go check that out.
This is going out within a week. Do you think we're going to get through the rest of this season in a week?
I don't know. Maybe you'll be bored one day. Just close out the season. We're almost done with season 1.
Yeah, we got a handful left.
3 or 4 episodes.
19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, 4. We got 4. So, yeah. There you go.
Still time to catch up.
I can't believe that betrayal, saying that Garrett Graham has better hair than Londo. That is a worse betrayal than Karen Allen in this movie cheating on her husband with the coma patient.
Oh, the Ace logo. And it's autographed.
She's so proud. Can you tell that arrived today?
Yesterday.
Or yesterday, yes. That was the first time we recorded since it arrived, though, is the point. Look at my thing. Look at my Garrett Graham. Yeah, look at it. All right. Thank you very much. So he is now the patron saint. He is going to be, you know, like in this very movie, there's a photo of Reagan behind the desk at one point.
That'll be my presidential plaque.
Yes. This is the Aces presidential plaque. It is Garrett Graham in a frame with his Centauri hair from Babylon 5.
I'm glad I'm able to contribute.
Could have
certainly my commentary isn't enough.
Don't be harsh on yourself. Everyone tell Tara she's great in the comments. Right?
No, shut up.
I encourage it.
I'm not fishing.
Tell her she's great, and she is
just tell me you love my Garrett Graham picture.
Delightful presence on this show. Encourage her, please, in the comments. Thank you very much.
This is so different from how you talk to Connor.
You can be mean to me and definitely be mean to Connor, right? That goes without saying. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good night, everyone.
I was literally, you interrupted the outro line.
There's a delay.
Sometimes I like to think that you pretend the delay is worse than it actually is, so you get away with intentionally interrupting me. I'm convinced of it.
Hey, you're a long ways away.
Thank you once again for watching or listening. We will see you next week for this fairly unknown movie starring Harvey Keitel. Look forward to stuff coming up, but that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction, and computer needs more salsa.
Up his ass.